Welcome to my views and news. Some new stories for you. Firstly, Ethiopian federal government and regional governments are faced with financial crisis. Economic challenge is increasing. And how is the government, federal and regional governments, how are they going to meet this challenge? That remains to be seen, but received a few details which show that this problem of budget deficit is becoming a serious issue now. Secondly, viewers, Tigray, where Tigray TV yesterday aired a discussion between Tigray leaders, interim government officials like Getachew, Tsadkan and public. And Tsadkan there spoke about Pretoria deal, about need for opening up of the parties to democracy. Did he criticize TPLF? Firstly, viewers, we know that Ethiopian government has been in talks with the IMF, with the World Bank for loans, grants, etc. Why? Obviously, because the government is in dire need of financial aid. It's in dire need of a bailout package for its economy. When the budget was passed, there was 300 billion budget deficit. It was said that deficit will be covered through loans and grants. Loans are not coming. Deficit is increasing. Now, regional governments are finding it difficult even to pay the salaries. Jimma University paid salaries to its staff 1 week late, reportedly this month. Southwest Ethiopia, Oromia regional state, especially Sidama regional state, there we are seeing serious challenges for regional governments. They are not able to continue release of funds for ongoing projects of building of infrastructure, etc. No new tenders, obviously. Even the already under construction projects are being stopped reportedly. If governments have no money to pay salaries, you can see what is the current situation in regions and on federal level. And why is this crisis intensifying? Because government is unable to get a bailout package from the IMF. We know that IMF has laid out some very tough preconditions, including guarantees from creditors, including some demands from Ethiopian government to create stability in the country. That is why we saw start of talks in Gambela, BG, Amhara, Oromia, etc. Ethiopian government is trying to follow the command of the IMF, but still no bailout package announced so far. That is why we're seeing problems. Birr to dollar exchange rate, official and black market rates are very different. Birr has lost value, around 100% value in black market. And people say that is the real value of birr, which is in the black market. So it means that government is faced with economic challenge. But what are government's priorities? PM Abiy, the federal government is building a palace. Oromia government yesterday signed an agreement with a Chinese company to start construction of a palace in Oromia, in Addis Ababa. And we saw that people from Oromia, then they opposed the construction. He said prosperity, development, peace are what people want. So maybe either he knows the challenges or he just wants to put pressure upon Shimalis Abdisa's government. Priorities are not the ones which can take the country out of this crisis. Government is spending money on projects which are lavish projects, which won't create any jobs, and government's relation with diaspora deteriorating, especially with Amhara diaspora. Remittances could be hurt. Efforts to get some sort of financial support from Arab countries, from China, did not succeed as well. Why? Because the creditors always try to assess the paying back capability of the countries. Ethiopian government's capability to pay back loans has been seriously hurt. And government needs lots of money for reconstruction in Tigray, for implementation of Pretoria deal. Even the Pretoria deal implementation can only be done if donors help. Otherwise, the implementation is unlikely to progress. So all these challenges are now becoming serious challenges for the government. So if IMF, EU, US did not approve a bailout package for Ethiopian government, we could see this economic crisis intensify in coming days, and people of Ethiopia will be hurt, not the government. Government will transfer the burden to the people. You'll see increase in the prices of fuel, food items, etc. You'll see inflation rise. You'll see more unemployment. So the burden of this economic crisis will be put on the people of Ethiopia. That is why I say that whenever government announces projects which have limited value in terms of creation of jobs, in terms of generation of revenue, people should not blindly support the projects. Let's see how Ethiopia is going to come out of this crisis. Secondly, viewers, Tigray TV on Wednesday aired a discussion, public discussion between Tigray interim government leaders and public. Now, in Tigray, we know that there are two groups emerging. One is Tigray interim government, military of elite members like Tsadkan, part of the government. Second group is TPLF. TPLF leaders like Debretsion, Elim Gabre Wahid, both are holding separate meetings, mobilizing people and accusing each other as well. On Wednesday, a meeting was held in Mekelle where Getachew spoke and Tsadkan spoke. And Tsadkan, in his talk, implied that TPLF should open up. It should be open to democracy. Without naming, he backed the continuation of interim government. He mentioned Pretoria deal, that when Pretoria deal was being negotiated, the signatories to the deal from Tigray side, Tsadkan, etc., they did not want to sign the deal because that deal nullified the regional election held in Tigray in 2020. But they had to sign the deal. He said that they had to sign the deal. So basically, in his talk, he said that the election held in Tigray in 2020 was legal, legitimate. Can we say he is implying that this interim setup is continuation of Tigray's legally elected legitimate structure, which was elected in 2020? He implied that, I think, that this interim setup should continue, and democratic atmosphere, level playing field for all political players should be created, and then next election should be held. That is what I got, the impression I got from his talk. I got translations, is that he is backing this interim setup. He is part of the interim setup. But main problem is that, Getachew spoke as well there, main problem is that we don't know how long will this interim setup continue. Of course, interim government will have to ensure the return of Tigrayans to Tigray to vote. No election can be held if Tigrayans are in Sudan, in other parts of the world, in other parts of Ethiopia outside Tigray. An election, the interim government wants to hold election after decision has been made about Volkayat Raya. But if Volkayat Raya issues are not solved, will there be no election in Tigray? These are very important questions. I think Tigray interim government, TPLF, federal government, they should sit and tell the people. Election Board of Ethiopia said that election will be held in Tigray next year. Next Ethiopian year will start after 4 months. So it means after 4 months, any time in the next 12 months, election can be held, but no date. That is why there is uncertainty. TPLF's leaders who were in power, who were the main decision makers like Debretsion Monjorino, Elam Gabre Wahed, sidelined now, they believe that this interim government might continue longer than it should, and that PM Abiy is backing this interim setup. It will weaken TPLF, as TPLF was not restored as a political party by the NABE, National Election Board. So that is why we are seeing now mistrust between TPLF leaders and interim government of Tigray. What is needed is discussion, engagement and agreement on some basic points. Points like when will election be held. I think main issue is holding of election. When will election be held in Tigray? I think government, political parties, including TPLF, Salsebuyene, Betona, all should sit, they should sit and they should agree on the date of election. And they should agree on whether election should be held after a decision has been made about Volkayat and Raya status or not. So these points should be negotiated and agreed. That agreement is missing. That is why we're seeing mistrust between the two sides. Thank you for watching.